James Collins stared at the email notification on his phone, his heart pounding against his ribs. Private meeting with CEO, 8 p.m. tonight. The same message that had appeared every evening for the past week. The same message that reminded him of the terrible mistake he'd made, and the unexpected path it had opened before him. If you're enjoying this story so far, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more emotional journeys that will touch your heart. 3 months ago, James never would have imagined himself in this position. A single father working overtime to provide for his 7-year-old daughter Lily, he had been barely keeping his head above water at Horizon Technologies. The promotion to senior project manager had been his lifeline, his chance to finally give Lily the stability she deserved after her mother had walked out on them 2 years earlier. But now, everything hung in the balance because of one night, one moment of weakness with Victoria Hayes, the formidable CEO who held his future in her perfectly manicured hands. James set his phone down and rubbed his tired eyes. The apartment was quiet now that Lily was asleep, her favorite stuffed giraffe clutched tightly against her chest. He'd promised her they would go to the zoo this weekend, but with these nightly meetings dragging on, he wasn't sure he could keep that promise. Another disappointment to add to the growing list. Another reason to feel like he was failing as a father. The night it happened had been the company's annual gala. James hadn't wanted to attend, but his team had insisted. "You need to get out more," they'd said. "It'll be good for you." What they hadn't mentioned was that Victoria Hayes would be there, looking nothing like the stern, business-focused CEO who struck fear into the hearts of executives twice her age. That night, she'd been just Victoria, brilliant, funny, surprisingly vulnerable after a few glasses of champagne. One conversation had led to another. The connection between them had been immediate and electric. When she'd invited him back to her penthouse, the sensible part of his brain had screamed at him to decline. But after 2 years of loneliness, of putting everyone else first, James had silenced that voice and followed his heart instead. The next morning had been excruciating. The regret had set in immediately as he'd slipped out of her apartment before dawn, shame burning through him. He'd broken his own rule. Never mix business with pleasure. Especially not with the woman who signed his paychecks, the woman who could fire him with a single word and destroy the life he'd carefully rebuilt for Lily. For a week, he'd avoided Victoria in the office, ducking into conference rooms when he saw her coming, rescheduling meetings where she might be present. Then the first email had arrived. Private meeting with CEO, 8 p.m. tonight. Not a request, an order. That first meeting had been nothing like he'd expected. He'd walked into her office prepared for termination, or worse, some kind of proposition that would force him to choose between his dignity and his daughter's well-being. Instead, he'd found Victoria surrounded by stacks of papers, her normally perfect hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, her eyes tired but determined. "I need your help, James," she'd said simply. "There's a leak in the company. Someone's been selling our designs to Nexus Corporation. I need someone I can trust to help me find out who." "And you trust me?" he'd asked, bewildered. Her smile had been small but genuine. "Oddly enough, yes. I'm a good judge of character. It's why I promoted you in the first place." That night had been the first of many. Each evening, after putting Lily to bed and leaving her with Mrs. Patel from next door, James would make his way to Victoria's office. Together, they would pore over financial records, employee files, security footage, anything that might lead them to the traitor in their midst. As the nights went on, something unexpected began to happen. The awkwardness between them faded, replaced by a partnership built on mutual respect and shared purpose. Victoria wasn't the cold, calculating businesswoman he'd believed her to be. She was passionate about her company, about the people who worked for her. She spoke of Horizon Technologies as a family, one she was determined to protect. And she asked about Lily. Not in a perfunctory way, but with genuine interest. She remembered details James mentioned in passing, Lily's love of giraffes, her struggle with math, her recent triumph at the school science fair. Sometimes, when they worked late into the night, Victoria would order food from the same diner James took Lily to on their father-daughter dates, claiming she wanted to understand why Lily loved their chocolate milkshakes so much. Tonight would be their 7th meeting. They were close to identifying the leak. All signs pointed to Marcus Winters, the head of product development who had been with the company since its founding. Victoria had been devastated by the revelation, but determined to confront him with evidence rather than suspicion. James glanced at his watch. 7:30 p.m. Time to wake Mrs. Patel and head to the office. As he reached for his jacket, his phone buzzed with a text message. Change of plans. I'm outside your building. We need to talk. James froze, then rushed to the window. Sure enough, Victoria's sleek black Audi was parked at the curb, its headlights cutting through the evening drizzle. This wasn't part of their routine. Victoria never left the office for these meetings, and she certainly never came to his modest apartment in the less fashionable part of the city. Something was wrong. He texted Mrs. Patel that he needed to step out briefly but would be in the building, then grabbed his keys and headed downstairs. Victoria was waiting in her car, her expression unreadable behind the rain-streaked windows. When he opened the passenger door, she didn't look at him. Get in, she said, her voice tight. We have a problem. James slid into the seat beside her, immediately noticing the tension in her shoulders, the white-knuckled grip she had on the steering wheel. What happened? Marcus knows we're onto him, she said, finally turning to face him. In the dim light of the car, her eyes looked darker, more vulnerable than he'd ever seen them. He came to my office an hour ago, threatening to release information about us, about that night, if I didn't back off. James felt the blood drain from his face. He can't prove anything. He has security footage of you leaving my penthouse that morning, Victoria said quietly. He's threatening to send it to the board, claim I've been giving you preferential treatment. It would destroy your reputation, possibly your career. And mine. The implications hit James like a physical blow. If this got out, he could lose his job. Worse, he could become unhireable in their industry, branded as someone who slept his way to the top. How would he provide for Lily then? What do we do? He asked, fighting to keep his voice steady. Victoria's laugh was bitter. That's the question, isn't it? I spent the last hour driving around, trying to figure out a solution that doesn't end with both of us losing everything we've worked for. And I realized something, she said, her voice softening. I realized that I'm tired of pretending that night was a mistake. I'm tired of acting like these meetings have just been about finding a corporate spy. The truth is, James, I look forward to seeing you every evening. I think about you during the day. I wonder what Lily would think of me. James stared at her, unable to process what she was saying. Victoria. Let me finish, she interrupted. I know this is complicated. I know there are 1,000 reasons why this shouldn't happen. But I'm not willing to let Marcus take you, away from me without at least being honest about how I feel. The rain was coming down harder now, drumming against the roof of the car, creating a cocoon of sound around them. In that moment, the CEO and the project manager disappeared, leaving just Victoria and James, two people who had found each other in the most unlikely of circumstances. I have feelings for you, James, Victoria said simply. Real feelings. And I think you might feel the same way. Before James could respond, a small tap on the window made them both jump. James turned to see Lily standing in the rain, her pajamas already soaked, her face pressed against the glass. Daddy? Her voice was muffled but clearly frightened. Where are you going? James was out of the car in an instant, scooping Lily into his arms. I'm not going anywhere, sweetheart. I was just talking to a friend from work. What are you doing outside? Where's Mrs. Patel? She fell asleep, Lily said, her small body shivering against his. I woke up and you were gone, and I saw the car, and I thought, her voice broke. I thought you were leaving like Mommy did. The pain in her voice cut through James like a knife. No, lily pad. Never. I would never leave you. He looked back at Victoria, who had stepped out of the car, her expression a mixture of concern and something else, something that looked remarkably like longing. Let's get you inside and dried off, James said to Lily, already moving toward the building entrance. He paused, looking back at Victoria. Would you like to come up? Victoria hesitated, then nodded. I'd like that very much. Upstairs, after Lily was changed into dry pajamas and settled back in bed with a cup of hot chocolate, James found Victoria standing in his small living room, looking at the photos on the wall, Lily at various ages, always smiling, always with James by her side. She's beautiful, Victoria said softly. She has your eyes. And her mother's stubbornness, James replied with a small smile. Sorry about the interruption. You were saying. Victoria turned to face him, her professional mask completely gone now. In its place was a woman James had glimpsed only once before, that night at the gala, when the world had seemed full of possibilities. I was saying that I have feelings for you, she repeated. And that I'm not willing to let Marcus or anyone else dictate what happens between us. James took a step toward her. Victoria, this is complicated. I have Lily to think about. And the company. I know, she said. Believe me, I've thought about all of it. But here's what I propose, we go to the board together, tomorrow morning. We tell them about Marcus, show them the evidence we've gathered. And then we disclose our personal relationship. We make it clear that it began after your promotion, that there's been no favoritism. And if they don't believe us? Victoria's smile was determined. Then I'll step down as CEO before I let them fire you. Horizon is my family's company, James. I'll always have a place there. But you and Lily, you need this job. James was stunned. You would do that? For me? For us, Victoria corrected. Because I think there could be an US, if you want that too. The question hung in the air between them, weighted with possibility. James thought about the past 3 months, the loneliness that had been his constant companion since his wife left, the struggle to be both mother and father to Lily, the unexpected connection he'd found with Victoria during their nightly meetings. Daddy? Lily's voice came from the hallway. She stood there in her giraffe pajamas, clutching her stuffed animal. Is your friend staying for a sleepover? James looked at Victoria, saw the warmth in her eyes as she regarded his daughter. Would you like to meet my friend, Lily? He asked. Lily nodded, suddenly shy. Victoria knelt down to Lily's level, extending her hand. Hello, Lily. My name is Victoria. Your dad has told me so much about you. Lily shook her hand solemnly. Are you Daddy's girlfriend? The question made both adults freeze. Then Victoria laughed, a genuine sound that filled the small apartment with unexpected joy. Not yet, she said, glancing up at James. But I'd like to be, if that's okay with you. Lily considered this seriously. Do you like giraffes? I love giraffes, Victoria replied. In fact, I was hoping to go to the zoo this weekend to see some. Would you and your dad like to come with me? Lily's eyes widened. Daddy promised to take me to the zoo. Did you tell her, Daddy? James shook his head, amazed at the coincidence, or perhaps it wasn't a coincidence at all. Perhaps Victoria had been paying more attention than he realized. No, sweetheart, I didn't tell her. I think Victoria just knows what's important. As Lily chatted excitedly with Victoria about giraffes and their upcoming zoo trip, James watched them together, a strange feeling of rightness settling over him. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges, the confrontation with Marcus, the meeting with the board, the uncertain future that lay ahead. But for tonight, in this moment, he allowed himself to believe that what had started as a regret might actually become the beginning of something beautiful. The nightly meetings that had begun as a professional necessity had evolved into something neither of them had expected, a chance to know each other, to see beyond titles and positions to the people underneath. And now, as Victoria looked up at him over Lily's head, her smile soft and full of promise, James knew that whatever came next, they would face it together. Sometimes, the mistakes we most regret become the doorways to the futures we never dared to imagine. For James Collins, a single night with his CEO had seemed like the biggest mistake of his life, until her nightly private meetings changed everything, opening his heart to possibilities he'd thought were forever closed to him. As the rain continued to fall outside, creating a gentle soundtrack to this unexpected evening, James made a silent promise to himself: no more regrets. Only possibilities. And the courage to embrace them, one day at a time.